And that
Started the session. Started the session.
Well, keep checking in. Ṣé remote ti ṣiṣẹ́? Remote camera ó yẹ ó ti ṣiṣẹ́. Ó ti gbé sí wa. Issue not from our remote camera yìí was according to are you good? Bọ́bá ìfẹ́ lọ present. Ẹ ẹ bọ́lá present. What? Are you good? Sometimes discussing about open flavor. Yeah. All right. Well, they're including one online. So maybe you have I think there are some good night. They're gonna be so like yeah around this time. So, where do you they're all like We meet again.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine. How many minutes? 5 minutes. Yeah. That's even 5. Yeah. The chicken would be happy when I arrive at the shop. Anything like this, some tell. I guess it's just life, yeah. But then I got kid size over there. Yes, I do. Okay, do you have like an email? Anyway, an email on our translate, so how do I change it? You have a flash. You know. Do you have? No, I don't. I don't know if I'm like it. Okay, let's try. Sure, this is nice. Thank you for this. I didn't see you. What? So what I do? Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I go. Yes, welcome to our panel, cybersecurity and emergencies, survivor care, belonging amongst the identity in Africa. So this panel brings out various work, four particular work on how individuals and communities are excluded from disciplinary area protection. So our second day will be talking about before the findings and the use of analysis. Some of them work, one of them worked on informal work on in Lagos, another person worked on Nakure, while another researcher worked on space testing in the stage, and the last person worked on the imported male sex workers for business in Nigeria. So their work focused on investigating care agency, how people come together to form maternity, sort of survivor, or how they cope with their marginalized, how they are being marginalized from society. So I would like us to, as they are presenting their work, reflect on their presentations, and if you're interested, you can ask questions at the end of their presentation. Thank you very much. So the first presenter will be Bolarinwa Ogundeji, and our work is on street youth in Akure.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll share my research on street youths. All right, I'm so excited to be here, and I cannot but appreciate the organizer of this panel. I'm Bolarinwa Ogundeji from University of Medical Science, Ondo, Department of Humanities, Humanities, General Studies, and Bioethics. I'm going to be talking on reclaiming humanity at the edges, collective care and survival strategies among street youth in Akure. First slide. Here are my outline. I'm going to look at the background to the study, statement of the problem, purpose of the study, and all of that. Now, let me quickly give you an overview of how I come about the topic. I happen to meet with one of these so-called street guides in Akure. So in the course of our discussion, I discovered a kind of humanity in them. Because when we were growing up, there is this kind of generational perception concerning street youths. So it's like the perception is being passed down from one generation to another. The study background is Akure. From the picture on the slide, you see a kind of a gradual transformation from a kind of a little population to increased population at the middle, while the last picture depicts overpopulation. Next slide. So Akure is the capital of Ondo State, located in southwestern Nigeria. There was, in 1990s, there was a transformation in Akure as a result of this rural-urban migration. You know, street youth in rural area, they believe they have this kind of perception that getting to urban center, things are going to get better. So they find themselves in urban center. So on getting there, as a result of this rural-urban migration, this leads to a lot of issues. It leads to overpopulation, overcrowding, shortage of houses, and at the end of the day, this leads to poverty, unemployment, and social issues. Take, for instance, somebody that was coming to an urban area, having the mindset that getting to urban center, I'm going to, have a kind of better life. But unfortunately for these street youths, on getting to urban center Akure precisely, they discover a different thing due to overpopulation. The so-called social amenities that they have at their mindset was not there, because this transformation was not actually prepared for by the government. It was sudden. And from the course of my research, there is nothing we can do about this issue of rural-urban migration, one. And two, there is no how we can stop these street youths. There would be definitely street youths in our community. Now, this research is a kind of counter-narrative from the previous perspective that we view these so-called street guys. Now, in the course of my research, I discovered this kind of resilience and resourcefulness in these street youths. Next slide. Now, aside from when they find themselves roaming about the streets due to the situation they met in Akure. Now, as a form of coping with this kind of issues, with this kind types of challenges, they try to define a kind of collective care and this survival mechanism. Now, the statement of the problem have actually said it. These street youths have been so marginalized in our society generally. They have been neglected. They have a kind of this stigmatization that is following them. Seeing them, what we come to individual perspective is that these people, they are being viewed as miscreants in the society. They see them as a threat in our society. But in the course of this, my research, I discovered a kind of different perception concerning street youth. In the okay, next slide. Let me go ahead. Taking you. Next slide. Looking at the existing literature on street youths or probably marginalized group, I discovered that their immoral aspects are being focused on. The criminality aspects, the neglecting totally the moral aspect of this so-called street youth. That is what this research is trying to address. That behind this negative perception concerning these street youth, we have a kind of woman in them. We have a kind of a different thing concerning this group. So this research answered the following questions. We try to look at their life experience. We also try to look at how they were able to build this communal network among themselves. And also, in the course of my research, I also discovered this gender dynamism among them, seeing female among them, taking a kind of this motherly role among them. So in the course of the presentation, you will see how these people were able to build this solidarity and this moral reasoning among them. Next slide. Okay, in the research, I tried to interview 50 street youths in their location. We have some people in, they are being located. These people, they don't have, they are homeless. They live in abandoned buildings. They eat what they see. But in the course of providing solutions to the challenges they find themselves, you see them giving meaning to their life. You see them bringing the humanity in them. Now, the places where they are being located in Akure is Isiko Market. We also have a number of them in Nepa, Roundabout, and Oja Oba. So I was able to meet these people, though, people that are traumatized. It's not really easy to have access to them. It's not really easy to engage these people. But I was able to use a kind of snowball strategy. I tried to I try to also interact with them. This research takes me about 18 months. I have to familiarize myself. I have to give them a kind of sense of belonging. I have to also attract them with the little funds that I have. Apart from that, I also engage people that are, some people know this street youth. They live among us. So people that have already have interaction with these people, I try to meet with them. So I use them as a kind of intermediary. They were the one that introduced me to them. And then I also, the ethical consideration that I also use, I try to make my motive, the motive of coming to them, I try to make it clear to them that it's just a research. And also, in the course of interview, most of them were a bit shy. I try to put myself also in their shoe. I try to also let them to hide their identity. So if they are talking to me, I tell them you can say Sister B or probably Brother O, just to make them free and give me what I actually want. Next slide, please. Next slide. I've talked about that. Next slide. So, in the course of literature review, there are some theories that really help this research. We have a subaltern theory and a feminist political economy. This theory really assisted me because they lay emphasis on the marginalized groups, agencies, and then this theory tried to as in tell us that these people, they are not passive, they are also an active agent to be recognized in society. Next slide, please, because of my time. Next slide, I've talked about that. Next slide. Okay. In the under survival strategies, in the course of the interview, I discovered that these people, as a form of coping with the existing situation, they engage themselves in some unskilled labor. You see them as a conductor in most of our garages. We see them in markets. They hawk. They wash car in a car wash. Apart from that, most of them, they also engage in a little skilled like hairdressing. They also, shoemaking. You see them at least from there. They also try to raise funds from the little income gotten from these various engagements. They were able to set up this kind of contribution called Ajotep. On daily basis, you see them having a collective contribution. Apart from that, I was so surprised. In the course of interviewing them, I discovered that these people, they form a kind of they see themselves as family. We have the elders. Okay. And elders among them, because I based my research on between age 15 to 28. So the elders among them, they serve as father to the younger ones. Please, next slide, so that I can show you their voices. Next slide. These are the voices from the street youths. We share food together. We sleep together. Apart from that, they also see threats from security agencies, because seeing them, they have been, misconstrued as they have been seen as a kind of criminal in our society. So police sometimes they come to where they live. They try to rape them. They try to disengage them. So apart from in order to find solutions to this kind of police harassment, they try to devise a kind of a coded language. They have a language by which if you are with them, you won't know that they are communicating. They will try to alert themselves. They have a kind of mobile phone like us, basically to alert themselves that, okay, and in case they see any little opportunity, they try to try to share it among themselves. And lastly, because of my time, I have so many things to say, but because of my time, this research is a kind of counter narrative. I'm trying to, in conclusion, this research revealed the counter narrative that challenges common stereotypes among street youths. They are not simply victims or threats, but active agents creating informal systems of care and community. And apart from that, they are also agents who have, since they have challenges, for somebody to sit down and have a kind of creative, for them to create another alternative to solve this problem. I think this set of people have to be accepted in our society. This research will also serve as a form of eye-opening to policy agencies that, the form of perception that we have concerning these street youth should be this, most especially police. We need to reorientate them that these people are not, they are not the way we view them. We should try and start viewing them from different perspectives. Let's see them from their moral aspects rather than their immoral aspects. And finally, in the course of my research, I discovered that if these street youths are not well taken care of, they are the ones that later, when the challenges have been too much on them, it can make them to start thinking of engaging themselves in immoral acts. I think if our government can actually recognize these youths, if they can empower them, if they can give them a kind of recognition in the society, I think the Akure community will be a better, and this research also, can serve as examples to other urban centers. Thank you.
For presentation. The next presenter is Joel Abba, and he's going to present on healing from the margins, infrastructures of care and the contextual belongings in Benue IDP camps. You're welcome.
All right, I want to begin by thanking Ifra for the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. My name is Joe Abba, and I'm from University of Ibadan, and also the Prince Abubakar Audu University. My slide, PPT, Ifra. All right, so I'm going to be presenting on healing from the margins. Infrastructure of care and contested belonging in Benue internally displaced persons camps. Can we proceed to the next slide? Normally, like we know, when informal system refuses to function, the next thing is people will begin to think, what innovative strategy do we adopt to ensure that we are able to meet our daily health needs? And this is peculiar because this is not just something that has to do with food. Anybody can get food anywhere, but when it comes to health, it has to do with specialists. So this study explores how these people improvise informal, spiritual, and communal infrastructure of health among internally displaced persons. Now, this study engaged three basic theories, beginning from the healing justice, people as infrastructure, and temporal politics. I conceptualize health not as merely biomedical issues, but something that has to do with solidarity, communality, spirituality, and all of the rest. So rather than framing IDPs as just people who are internally displaced, this study framed them rather as people who are part of the infrastructures that sustains alternative futures, people that create a kind of infrastructure, theorists of indigenous medicine and all of those. So rather than seeing them as IDPs, like I mentioned, let's see them as those who are theorists of traditional medicine. And so mapping the places of this study was conducted in Benue State in 3 IDP camps, beginning with Bagana, Daudutu, and Naka. And the reason for this is because of the protracted conflict in Benue. I know a lot of us have been hearing in the news what has been happening in Benue State in the past few days. And like you know, the IDP camps keep swelling without reasonable infrastructure. And then the reality is that a lot of times they have to do long walks to where they can find health infrastructure. And even when health infrastructure is found, it is not free. And you need to know also that these people left their homes almost without anything, left their homes maybe just with the clothes on their body. So it's simply difficult for them to afford any kind of health care that is too costly. And again, another striking issue is that the Medicines Sans Frontiers from 2018 to 2023 provided very integrated healthcare systems for those in Abagana and those in Dauditu. However, in 2023, MSF pulled out of Benue State, and that led to a very serious problem because there was no follow-up by government, there was no follow-up by other actors to ensure that the gaps were covered. The actors that followed up, let's say it was just patchy health interventions by UNICEF and then World Health Organizations that could not really meet the health needs of the IDPs. So as a result of this gap, what you find is emergent cities without infrastructure, not just temporary IDP camps, because what is happening there, it's no longer temporary. This was because in 2020, 2022, 2021, I was in the IDP camps, and some of the persons I met there in that year, I still met them in 2024 December that I was there. So that is to tell you that look at the gap. So we cannot term what is happening in the IDP camps in Benue State as simply temporary infrastructure, but we can rather conceptualize it as emerging cities where informal chaos usually fill the void. And then, can we move to the next slide? So we're not moving very fast. The next research objectives. Okay, that is me there in one of the IDP camps. And then looking at, so the basic, what am I going to do in this research? The first thing we're going to be looking at is how do IDPs re-image care beyond formal medicine? And again, where and how do herbal, spiritual, and communication systems, communal systems, sorry, not communication system, cooperate to ensure that health is guaranteed? And then we're also going to be looking at reframing care as a political claim, care as dignity, belonging, and resistance. And then finally, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be centering IDPs as knowledge producers, not victims, but caregivers, theorists, and agents of healing. Can we move to the next slide very quickly? So just like I mentioned earlier, we're going to the theoretical frame for this study is beginning from people as infrastructure. The IDPs have become their own infrastructure, defining their own lives. And then we're going to look at healing justice by Pebsner, and also temporal politics, the act of keeping people in a state of waiting without hope, being suspended in limbo, not knowing what the future holds, not even knowing what the present holds. And so these theories together, we will look at, we explain to us why informal care matters and how displaced people innovate care. How do they innovate care and love? where dignity is reclaimed through healing. And then methodologies of care. Can we move to the next methodology? Let's move very fast. And then the methodologies, I use a geographic information system, which is GIS mapping to look at spatial gaps in healthcare access across 3 IDP camps to map how and where the IDPs are able to get help. And then also, I need to also say that a large part of this study was drawn from my PhD studies. And so I also looking at ethnography to 40 interviews with IDPs, healers, and aid workers, and then participatory diaries and all of that. So let's look at the ethical lens with flexibility. It's difficult to speak to strangers or let them know what you, sometimes it's filled with a lot of suspense, especially that there is the spirituality dimension part of it that seems a little bit mystical. So, so that was how we went. That is to mean reflexively, you have to show that you respect whatever they practice to get healing. Can we move to the next? Thank you. And then when health system collapse, what remains? Like I mentioned, there is a collapse of biomedical infrastructure, MSF withdrawal, UNICEF and World Health Organization scaling up but not meeting it. And then IDPs consistently face stigma, exclusion, and invisibility in formal health mapping, and then rise of vernacular care ecologies. Vernacular care ecologies, one that is synonymous with the people that the people have known even since for eons. And then one of the voices from the field noted that since MSF left, healthcare seems to be a luxury. I mean, okay, I have 5 minutes more. Thank you. I'm rounding up. And then we're looking at informal infrastructure of care. And then let's move quick. I have 5 minutes. And then you can see this elderly woman. That is me there. The woman was trying to show me something. And then you see the people as infrastructure, like we can see, you see these elderly women, they are healers, they're being helpful in treating physical injuries, scorpion bites, malaria, typhoid, and all of the rest. And so there are spiritual healing, prayer cycles, communal solidarity, and all of those. So can we move forward very quickly? And then if you're doing the spatial mapping of informal, indigenous, innovative infrastructure in Benue State, I just did a little mock-up GIS mapping. And so you can see that even from the communities where the IDP dwells are now beginning to benefit from the innovative structures that are now existing from accidental discharge. Can we move to the next? And so healing as a political claim. And then a lot of them feel that, now I need you to know that some of these healing systems in Africa, they have been passed transgenerationally. Sometimes these people displaced within from communities, they had this, sometimes it could be a gift of trying to notice the right herb to use, how to mix herbs, and so all of those. So these people see healing as protest. The count is not a pause. It is not a point where your life comes to a stop. It's a point where your life comes to the point of innovate or die, because government is not coming soon. And like healing spaces in IDP camp are not just clinical, they are political, they are spiritual and relational zone. In that dimension, care is framed as strategy. Can we move to the next quickly? You are eating out of my time. So you see, there is a huge policy disconnect from the voices in the field. Some of them are appreciating, but this is not just, I think there was a mistake. That's supposed to be the local and foreign actors providing health support. And then everybody is lamenting, MSF is gone. What we have now is a traditional healing system, which they define to be very effective. And then the policy disconnects too. Several of them would have long been dead, if not for those kinds of interventions. Can we move forward very quickly? And then towards new paradigm. broaden participation beyond bringing in the Western kind of medicine. We need to begin to look inward as a people and think, what do we have? Because it is not enough to depend on people who will one day disappear. So, so advance epistemic justice, because there have been a lot of things about the African indigenous healing processes, but I think we can bring a balance and then integrate vernacular knowledge. And so what we're looking for here is a point where we can, it is not like we'll talk down on the Western healing system, but we're also trying to say that we also need to ensure that when one is not there, the other will be present. Can we move further? So from survival to futurity, and like they say, we heal because we heal because we must heal together. And then displacement, like I say, is not the end of knowledge, it's the beginning of something new. And then I think that should be the last slide now before we. Now, I want to say a big thank you again, like I said earlier, every insight shared here belongs to the community. I am just a researcher. Thank you very much. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joe.
Yeah.
The next presenter, Safi Hilton.
So she's transferring. But I don't know for the. Actually, I'm not even spot everything because I can't even find my file. I can't find it. But I said you open it the other time. Why can you find it? She has asked everything, but she's very good to go. I think she wants to be. Yeah. You have it. Yes. Right. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I'll be talking on negotiated existence, identity construction, survival and coping strategies amongst informal waste pickers and sorters in Lagos. For starters, you probably will not be familiar with that term, waste pickers, but degradingly we refer to them as human scavengers. Very wrong to say. So let's go to the next slide. If you look at this picture, we'll probably look at everything is good with this picture, except the fact that their environment is not something too tidy. They are wearing normal clothes, they are puffing smoke, they are posing for photographs. So these are the kind of people who live at landfills and waste dumps. They have a life, the blood runs in their veins, they speak the language you speak. However, they said something. Because we work with waste, people see us as waste. So they are actually socially excluded. But if we're talking about waste, rapid urbanization has increased human activities in different spaces. Next slide, please. And one of the fallouts of increased production is large production of large amounts of municipal waste. Waste management and associated issues rank as one of the most critical challenges facing humanity. Of course, we know that is actually connected to climate change in some way, and the environment question is the greatest question facing humanity. Next slide. In Nigeria, like the rest of the world, rising population, human mobility, use of technology, all these have resulted in massive accumulation of different kinds of waste. Now, when we say different kinds of waste, for people, there is household waste, there is solid waste, there is medical waste, there is e-waste. So different categories of waste, but all depending on what we are engaging with. And because this question has arisen and is engaging everybody across the world, like Nigeria, like other parts of the world, we have the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. Saddled the responsibility of managing issues of the environment. And then the same thing goes on. Other states have done the same thing. You have agencies like LASEPA, that is Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, and LOMA that deals specifically with the issue of waste management. But when it comes to managing waste in Nigeria, ends largely in composting of garbage in landfills. We have not gotten to the point of recycling. We are doing recycling, but just like 0.03% of waste generated in Nigeria is actually going through the recycling process. We're not even doing reclamation, where production of biogas is still very low. So basically, the dump site becomes a space of activities, of human activities, and other associated engagements. When you look at this, you probably think this looks like an apocalyptic scene. Next slide, please. It looks like an apocalyptic scene where something has happened. But this is actually Olusosun, the biggest landfill in Africa, sits on over 100 acres of land space. It is the biggest in Nigeria, and this space takes minimum of 100,000 tons of waste daily. So you can imagine how much, and people who come to this place, we have nothing less than 6,000 people who have business to do in this place at any point in time. Next slide, please. So what are the conditions of waste workers? Actors in the informal sector of waste endure some of the most perilous conditions. They take care of our trash. They take care of our garbage. There's a Yoruba word that calls waste egbin. That means despicable, something that must not be touched. So these people actually handle the most despicable of our objects. Our waste, the end residuals, that's what the waste workers remain excluded from mainstream urban governance and policy. The only contact they have with government is the fact that government regulates the waste, the landfills. But every other thing, they are left to their own identity. They suffer deprivation and persecution, like I said earlier. Next slide, please. Olusosun landfill, which is the biggest landfill, like I said, sits on 100 acres of land, takes 10,000 tons of waste daily, estimated 6,000 people, including 22,000 waste pickers and sorters work at it. A good number of these waste pickers and sorters live in shacks and other mixed. Anywhere you are in Nigeria, regardless of the neighborhood, you would have seen these guys who carry sack on their back. They are unkempt, raggedly looking, and most of the time, the picture we have of them is they are criminals. They are thieves. They must not be taught. They must not be allowed. Yes, we can't remove the fact that there are criminal elements among them, but more often than not, the things they do, one of them told me, he said, because I do dirty things and I handle dirty things, that does not define my person. And I think to a great extent, that is who they are. Next slide, please. So the objective, a plethora of literature abound on the environmental situation in and around Olusosun landfill. Olusosun landfill is at Ketu, Ojota. It opened in 1958. For over 12 years, the Lagos State government has said for environmental reasons and some other social reasons, they want to close the landfill. But they've not been able to close the landfill. Different things that say, oh, we want to turn it to a transmission station, we want to turn it to a golf course, we want to turn it. But the fact is that the environmental degradation that has happened in Olusosun, research says it will take 96 years to undo what has been done in Olusosun. So you can write, so the government is actually shy about closing it up. But that is the part that concerns the government. But this study looks at how waste pickers and sorters negotiate their rights to life, construct their socio-economic identities, as well as their survival strategies, especially beyond the dump site. There's a life after the dump site. There's a life that they must live. So even though they are despicable, in quote, they are scavengers, we see them, we criminalize them, they are actually, they negotiate their identity within the larger society in their own way. So the research question that's guiding these studies, I'm asking, next slide, please. What are the environmental and sociological realities around landfills? We are quick to say, oh, groundwater, there is pollution, there is air pollution, but we're forgetting the fact that beyond the environmental factors, the people who make the environment happen, those are the people who work at the landfills. What are the sociological conditions that they're exposed to? Is there a culture to them? Do they have a voice? Do they have identity? Can they even aspire to the better things in life? How do waste pickers negotiate the contours of social exclusion? Because that is the most important thing that they suffer. They are socially excluded. Their identity needs to be reconstructed. And for them, reconstruction of identity is a progressive thing. It doesn't stop in one day. And they are survival beyond the landfills. If this landfill closes today, what happens to waste pickers? We will continue to generate waste. But who are those who work on the waste? I won't shed my shirt. You won't probably shed your suit to go and work there. Then how have these measures translated into hope, identity, and place for waste pickers? Next slide, please. So the theoretical framework that's guiding me, that I'm very about, is about the negotiated order theory by Anselm Strauss. This is rooted in symbolic interactionalism. It posits that social order is not static, but rather a continuously negotiated and renegotiated process. So for these people, they are continually renegotiating their place in society. Whether we give them a chance to abide, we give them a chance to flourish, they will eke out something for themselves. And that is the identity But Strauss argued that virtually all social order is negotiated order. To accomplish tasks in social settings, people chiefly negotiate with each other. Through ongoing process of negotiation, social actors alternately create, maintain, transform, and are constrained by social structure. The methodology. This was... Okay, no problem. I'll finish before that. Ethnography, it was, an exploratory research design. But what concerned me was the life they've been able to live. And the fact is that waste workers who do not have identity in society, they form their football club, they have a boxing gym, they have table tennis champions among them, they are representing Lagos State. So they are actually negotiating their own identity, their own place in society. So whether you like it or not, they are being respected. I had interviews with, semi-structured interview guide. Permissions were granted by the chairman of the waste recyclers and landfillers. Now, some of their voices. It is sad that many people regard us as miscreants, criminals, and walking plagues. Waste pickers are not criminals. For me, this is an honest job, and I'm proud of what I do. It may be dirty, but the look and state of what I do don't define me. Let's think about that. Another person says, no one cares about us, at least not the government. And I go pigeon. Even the small place where they stay, people still they obtain us. On top of everything, they vote. They pay other money, but they don't give us NIN. Small time when election reach, then go say, make we register, make we vote. But now they go still say, alumni boys, na thief them be. This life no just balance. Is it really balance?
No balance.
But what are their losses? Discriminative practices, exclusion from social plans, exclusion from governance, shifting government policy, social, political, and economic exploitation. I wish I could see the next picture. The picture, this is the alumni boys playing football. They actually play in Lagos State Football Division, you understand? And they've been there since 2014. Next slide, please. Their football club is named Alumni Rangers Football Club, competing in Lagos Divisional Football Association, LAFA, since 2014. Alumni Open Boxing Gym. These are their trophies. They produced 2 national champions, Rashidi Adio and Moses Daniel. Table tennis players Kudu Tajudeen and Fatai Eriomi, part of the Lagos State team to the National Sports Festival that just finished in Abeokuta. Kingsley Taiwo and Lucky George, dance stars who have appeared in different music videos. Toyib Kunta is a Fujic music star, and the guy is doing well. If given the chance, I would have brought him here. So some of the other trophies, they have a community of commonalities. That means they share the same thing, and they've been able to build an interdependence and interconnectedness, one for all for one. If you live in Lagos and you think when you hit an Okada people will gather around you, try waste speaker. Accuse one of them, they will swarm you. So for them, it is one for all for one. They have mediated advantages, healthy recreation, the boxing club, the table tennis, pop culture, carnival, music, dance, survival strategies, necessary innovations for competitiveness, socio-economic relevance. They've made themselves relevant. They support their dreams and ambition. I got a phone call that a guy who wrote JAM from there actually scored 286, and he wants to study law at University of Ado-Ekiti. 286 from there. And there are some other people who scored about 10 of them scored about 230 and above, all working, living, rising, and sleeping at the wisdom. In conclusion, amongst others, overall, the study underscores the interconnectedness of determination, resourcefulness, and resilience in interrogating the social exclusion of waste pickers and sorters. Their resourceful negotiation of their existence and their identity construction, as well as survival strategies in Lagos. They seek to create their kind of life and affirm their claims and places as deserving members of society. And I don't think we can deny them. Thank you for listening.
The last presenter, Cynthia. She'll be presenting on From Italo to Nkoro, Post-Deportation Lives of Nigerian Edo Sex Workers and the Struggle for Immigration.
Thank you so much.
What
Is that what? Is that what?
unnamed?
It's not named.
Is that what?
I sent it to you. It's not with Flash.
Just say USD something. Just US.
No. Okay, so it is actually from Italo to Nkoro. Those places we call hideouts in Nigeria. And I look at the post-deportation lives of Nigerian Edo sex workers and the struggle for integration. First of all, I want to make it clear that I'm conceptualizing these women as women, not state-sponsored returnees, but people that are deported or voluntarily return as a result of the hazards of their work. Okay, and thank you for the opportunity to present this work. And my research focuses, this particular research focuses generally, like I said, on women, Nigerian Edo women sex workers that have been deported from European cities, specifically Italy and France. And my key concept I'm trying to understand here or navigate with is the concept of social debt, also gender migration, and informal economy that they become a part of when they return. And I'm using one question to understand this, and it says, how do these women navigate return to a community that celebrates migration. I'm trying to explain this because, or I'm looking at it because migration in Edo State, especially to specific parts of Europe, is celebrated. It is something, and it's not about the knowledge of what the girls or the women are going to do, but just that crossing from Nigeria to Europe. There's that celebration in each household that migration has afforded. If we get the slide, please. Did you try to open it in the email? Okay, so I conceptualized this using Nicola Mai's 2018 work where he talked about migratory dreams. So these women leave Edo State with the mind that they are moving for better economic advancement, to better themselves, and sometimes for survival. But what happens might be a different story. Helen in 2006 said that the Italian dream is about that migration imaginary in Edo State. So it's some sort of a collective. Everybody thinks that once you are able to move from Edo to any part of Europe, you're made. So, and then there's also this gendered expectation. I'm an adult woman myself, and I know that as the firstborn girl, there's a lot of expectation financially and even morally that you are supposed to meet up with. And I also conceptualize. Yeah.
Just click repair.
I'm on the third slide. I also conceptualize return as symbolic failure, like Cine Plambek said in 2014. What were my methods? How did I look at these things and how did I get them? It was an ethnographic work, and I started doing my master's in 2017 and up to 2024 when I went for my field work, 2023 and 2024 when I went for my field work in Italy and France for my PhD. And then I started from Benin City, gathering women and talking to them. There, I was really talking to the returnees themselves. So when I was in Italy and France, I spoke to people that have been that had come back to Nigeria and come back again to Italy and France. I conducted in-depth interview with over 40 women. And for my positionality as an Edo woman, there are lots of biases that comes with that. But at the same time, I try to be the insider and the outsider, look at my own position, try to avoid biases as I go. Also, it was a very narrative-centered research because I based every of my thematic analysis on the narration, on the narratives of the women. So the things I'm focusing on is social death and stigma. And I look at deportation as symbolic erasure. What that means, actually, Bembe talked about it when he said that fact that you have failed in whatever you are doing, it becomes, you're like a non-entity. And one of the girls said in Pidgin, nobody will send you again. In fact, person will turn nonsense. This was our own word. So it became, for them that had come back, it became something like they didn't want to be seen, even by their family. The society itself wanted to kind of erase them. Secondly, I look at moral condemnation from community and family. So for a community that celebrates migration, if you return voluntarily, it is shame. It is accompanied by shame. If you're deported, the shame is double. And one of the girls, La Poche, she told me, I know if it's go back to my family with empty hands. Now, why I begin hustle again for here? We spoke at Upper Sakumba and she told me this. Then there's this concept of internalized shame and exclusion. And O'Connell Davidson talked about this as well. Anita, one of the girls in New Benin Market, where I spend most of my time, told me that the eye where our people, they take lupus. See, now why would they stay for that? With the high, they sell our things. And we know what in Koro means, a lot of things, a lot of criminal ongoings happen there. Voila. So the second theme, I looked at informal economy as resistance. And for people that are facing a kind of erasure by the community they belong to, these women still try to be visible in that same community. You see them selling food by the roadside. They deal with secondhand clothes. They are selling pure water and bottled water and soda drinks, hawking it on the road. So they are there. Their presence is felt, even if the society is trying to remove them from or morally look down on them. Secondly, I also say that these spaces become spaces of dignity. Even if they are hawking and the society is saying we don't want to see you, they still find a way to make ends meet and dress up. You see them, they are gaily dressed and trying to find economic advancement. And Lindell talks about this as well as Mega. Then there's also visibility and self-reinvention in the urban informal economy. You see them trying to reinvent themselves, even in their so-called failed migratory journeys. So what, I also talk about ambiguity and agency. I say this work challenges the binaries of victimhood and perpetrator, that insider, outsider. We should look at how return migration itself is a part of migration studies. Also, I look at improved strategies using street smartness. These women, by the fact that they've walked on the street in Italy, they are coming out in Benin and using that knowledge and engaging the community itself. And I also talk about resilience through business strategy, how they hustle in that space with more seasoned street hawkers for their own business as well. So what does it mean for them? I said success becomes survival. So they need to be successful because it also ties to their own economic and their survival, so to speak. There's also caregiving. A lot of them had kids, so they had to also give that care to their children. And it was also about visibility, not just remittances that those that are away in Europe gave back. Also, there's this, I talk about the alternative dignity in a stigmatized context. And then I also talk about critique of reintegration models. How are we talking about reintegration for people that have come back from their migratory journeys? So what are my concepts? I said it shifts the focus from border crossing to return life, and the Genova talks about this. And I said it reframes informal economies as complex spaces of agency. And I also look at how it offers us alternative perspective to migration, gender, and urban studies. So what do I conclude with? I'm saying deported Edo sex workers are not passive victims. We should not always look at them as passive people or victims, actually. They are adaptive agents. I also talk about informal labor, how it enables resistance and reinvention. And lastly, I look at how policy and academia must recognize the emotional and symbolic aspect or dimensions of return. And lastly, I want to say thank you to Miss Mission, the intervention, it's the sensibilization, country la trade, the trade women. I worked with them in France and they were really helpful for this research. I also want to thank the Social Science and Humanities Research Council of Canada for funding this research. I also have to thank Gender and Black Studies Collective of Queen's University, where I'm a fellow. I thank Infra Nigeria for bringing me here. I also thank the Rangoon and Anthropology Department of the University of Alberta. I thank the University of Alberta Exchange Program. And lastly, but not the least, all the women who have shared their lives with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the floor is open for questions. Go on.
You will not. You will get first.
Okay.
Hi everyone, thank you for your presentations. They were all very, very interesting. And something that's I think in common with almost all of them, so question all of them, that the people you studied did labeled as criminals. And I was wondering if you know how that label came to be, who put that label on them, how did it come about, change, was it not perceived like this in the past? So I was just wondering about that.
Give me the question.
Yes, yes, I got the question.
Well, for the
Let me ask the second question. Okay.
for the waste speakers, we won't close our eyes to the fact that not a few of them have been caught in criminal activities. So the society, that identity sits well with the society, better than to see them as different. So we're not seeing the fact that they are evolving, they are changing, or there are different things about them. You are a criminal and you are a criminal, and it would take, I mean, in the eyes of society, it would take more than what we've seen for them to be rebranded. They can't share the toga of criminality. However, I think that is because they come to us. But when you go to them where they operate, the landfills, you will see different people. You will see dignity of labor. You will see adaptation. You will see negotiation. And above everything, you see honesty. So I think we need to weigh the balance for them.
In addition to what he has said, I think it's a kind of generalized thing. If people look at you, if you are not really progressing, if you have a kind of challenge, there's this stigmatization that's, there's this perception that people will look at you and say, oh, this one is just. So it's not that they are being caught in any act, but it's just a general perception due to their condition, due to their challenges.
All right. May I also respond to that? You see, normally when there are newcomers in community, the community is first of all scared of them because you don't know the people that are coming in. You don't know if they are regarded, they are what we call in peace study as securitized. They begin to look like they are treated as security threats in that community. And so if you are seen to be a part of those that have been displaced and you are in that community, what happens is that the community do not just open their arms to accept you. And so even in for instance, where they are in the IDP camp, you cannot own land. An IDP is not allowed to own land in the context that I studied. But you can just be manual laborers and all of those things. So all of those things contribute to the level of access they have to formal healthcare. And again, for the fact that as a medical personnel, you don't want to be treating people for free, right? These people don't have money to pay. So even if they come to you for treatment as a medical personnel, you will use that to say, okay, let's see later or something like that, something to just chase them away. And that itself is a lot of stigma. Thank you.
I'll just say there's some cultural expectations, and if you don't mix them, you are called out outside and start, even if what you're doing is not specifically bad.
The next question. So the next question, sorry.
You started speaking first. Before.
Was me or
You.
So, first, thank you very much for your presentation. It was really interesting, and from what I see, there is some well, if I can draw lines between all of our presentation, I would say that they show how actually marginality is not in a positional category
like opposite to society or no one belonging. When you see, for example, how these youth street are petty traders, so it's means that they have the interaction with the so-called normal citizen or city dwellers, for instance, or when you see these sex workers who are trying to reintegrate society, but see them in a very bad way. But actually, this is just my general comment. But I have some questions for you, especially for you, simple response. I was wondering, but actually, Dr. Abramovich had the same question that I saw. We started maybe you can. No. Okay. I was wondering actually. You studied a very large population, young people. From 13 years old to 28 years old, they can be man, boy, or girl, and woman. But I was wondering, what is the relevance of that appellation of being young or youth when you see the very large range of ages? Also, because depending on your age, the society, and depending on your gender identity, I feel like different kind of social expectation can weigh on your shoulder. We don't expect the same things from a boy, like a 13 years old boy, than from a man, I would say, of 25 years old, and it has the same question of women. So I was just wondering how to what extent they can be called youth children, and maybe, I don't know, they have their own identification. If you compare this situation with what happened in Côte d'Ivoire and Burkina Faso, this youth street called themselves Bako-Roman, which means basically people who are asleep. So I don't know, maybe in Nigerian context, they do have their own name and they call themselves a particular name. And maybe this name could be more relevant than youth children. I don't know, it's just an open question. Then for Tualaba, I have also a question for you. Actually, you suggested something about the transmission. And I was wondering, in the context of camp, all the kinship ties through which usually you transmit that kind of healing knowledge.
Yes.
These ties are basically broken. So I was wondering how these transmissions of knowledge can be operative, and how do they do? Or maybe there's no transmission. I don't know. I just wanted some more information about that.
All right. Yeah.
And please, Dan, I have to say for you, I'm quite a bit frustrated because I wanted to know more about this football club, about the boxing activities and everything. So I was wondering, maybe you can say more stuff about this soccer football teams and everything. And Cynthia, thank you very much for your presentation, because I think from what you said, that the other paradox of immigration in Nigeria and all this mobility between Europe and Nigeria. But I was just wondering, or maybe I didn't get it in your presentation, I was just wondering what kind of work these ex-sex workers are doing. You mentioned that the fact that they are so basically they are traders and sellers, and what kind of product they sell, and to what extent maybe I don't know that their actual work maybe it still is about the community. Do they sell main project? I don't know, just another question. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for on that. And just a comment. I think stigmatization, stereotype, or marginalization in practice as Chimamanda, I think actually data on the table, so it's not, I say it's not opportunity for the data place. Now, since we construct, we stigmatize those people and talk about the street boys, the sex workers. Since we construct the identity based on what they in fact negative, and even at times it goes beyond individual perception of those moves. Looking at them in such pictures, perceiving them as such. To even policies where, like policing the groups, we even those like the police force or what they call even the FCC, when they see people, like youth and parents, they say, oh, they're for that. How do we beyond individual. So at what point can we, redefine that perception? In a better way, where we begin to see the creating awareness, even when those who are implementing or enforcing policies, we just transcend beyond individual and social perception to even policy level issue and enforcing policies. So what can we do? How can we define to think about your sort perception? Secondly, when you talk about I think you said 18 to 28. The UA recommends 18 to 24. In African Union chapter is 18 to 5. For the Nigerian defense, for the national youth policy in Nigeria is 18 to 20. So just already something. Oops.
Yes, bless you. Okay. Okay, thank you very much to the two presenters. It was really wonderful, very interesting. I find that there was really a very strong link, as we already said, on counter narratives, resilience, reflexivity. We have a lot of materials now to discuss again, maybe with a further thing that but anyway, thank you so much. I was missing a little bit the previous intervention, saying a little bit the material of stigma, maybe, but it was very good to go to example. In some example, they were not digging very, very deeply, but this is a very strong presentation. So my critics will be addressed mostly. I mean, not critics, but maybe just questions to Dr. Abad. First, I would like to know the place also of the religion in the camp, because you were also talking about this, for sure, I would say, not, I mean, a very, very symbolical aspect. And so I imagine that there is also a link with the religion practices. And I would like to know if there is some kind of syncretistic, I mean, religion which maybe mix some traditional practices with some other religion. So this is my really question for you. And to Mr. Feistan, I agree with what my colleague said about the fact that there is a little bit of frustration of not knowing more about the wonderful fieldwork on the football and boxing. I mean, sure, can develop further, but I have a precise question about eventually inversion of stigma. I don't know if the youth, I mean the men that they worked on, they have they call themselves in a particular way if they invent languages to inverse the stigma. I mean, this kind of really very studied practices of inversion of stigma, to use the stigma as a power. So if there is an invention, and this, by the way, everybody also with Benin, and yes, because the inversion of stigma is very in a way of empowering ourselves through the stigma that the society gives. I stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the first round of questions, then I'll not proceed with that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let me start from your question, if I may get it right. You were saying that, okay, you were talking, you said maybe they have a name for themselves. Yes, for themselves. Yeah. Apart from the policy. No, they don't have. They don't have.
Okay, maybe let me begin with the question that
And then the director was talking about the transgenerational transfer of healing and all of those process. How does it happen? Now, normally in the African culture, healing can be learned and healing can be a gift. In the sense that if you grow up in a family where your dad, your mom is an herbalist, in quote, those who use herbs to prefer healing, you're going to learn how to mix herbs to understand, to bring healing to sick bodies, physical injuries, and all of that. And then when many of these persons that were displaced were into some of those practices. So it's not something that just happened. Then in the IDP camp, they saw that there were needs. And so like one had to tell me, she came just with a wrapper and shirt. So, but when she began to see that people were not getting treatment, she began to think back on visit some of the nearby bushes to look for leaves and then began to bring help to them. But what happened was that they also have a team that they work with. So if you are interested in working with that team, what happened is that you will join them. Even if you don't have the gift of healing, you can learn. And then learn by knowing the herbs that can be used for healing at that moment. So you leave camp as an educated traditional healer. So that itself is another vocation, if at all there is the IDP camp is resettled someday. And then Dr. Barbara was talking about the place of religion in the IDP camps, syncretism, and all of those. Now, the issue is that African healing processes are both physical and spiritual. And then if somebody is sick, the first thing that happens is inquiry. And that inquiry is what you can refer to diagnose the person. That process in Africa could be done by physically examining the body. But then there is another that has to do with spiritism. So it takes a special kind of initiation. And then a lot of times, before you can understand the entire processes that happens, when it has to do with spiritism, you will have to be initiated because some of those things are top secrets. So they are regarded as classified information. But what I know and what I saw in the camp was that there are prayers. Those women, they may not be physical, but they have a spot where they could go to find out about issues that are more spiritual than physical. Like a typical example, in some African communities, once a leg is broken, what they do is to get a chicken or something, and then they break the leg too. The leg of that chicken is broken, and then they begin to treat it. As they are drawing the leg, you will also be feeling pains on your leg. I don't understand that technological connection. And then as the leg of the animal gets healed, okay, as the leg of the animal gets healed, you just notice that your leg is returning to normalcy. And so those are part of some of the processes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the football club, in 2014, normally after, well, I don't like saying Africa because I say Africa is not a country. And like Apia said, there are many ways of being an African. You understand? So specifically in Nigeria, we are football loving nation. And we look at every available space, boys have something to kick around. So after a whole day, the guys at the landfill, they just gather together to play. So from the story I was told, in 2014, somebody came together and told them, oh, why don't you enter a competition? And that's probably because of the level of skill displayed. And they entered the competition. I think they did very well. Thereafter, they were registered. Now, what made it good is the fact that football association in Nigeria is broken down even to the grassroots level. So at the grassroots level, there is the Ikeja Football Divisional Association. So they register there. There's always competition, and that was how. However, one of the interesting things about them, they told me, is that unlike most other teams that have had sponsorship at different times, they've never been sponsored. So they sponsor themselves. They sponsor themselves. They take care. So while some other teams might have things like a team doctor, a physio, somebody to attend to them, so everything is shared grit. They just do things that way. But one thing they've not been able to do, like I asked them, is the fact that, have you been able to break it down into different categories? Maybe like the junior side, but for the problem of continuity, they've not been able to do that. So what you have is, but since 2014 till 2024, they've been playing in the amateur league in Lagos. And they've not won any trophy, but they've not been relegated. So they've been good.
Relevant.
Like 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, they got to the semi-final of Lagos State FA Cup, which is the most important football competition in Lagos State. The Alumni boys, they got it. Now, going back to that, why are they called Alumni boys? They decided to reinvent. The stigma is, you call them, depending on where you are in Nigeria. In the Southwest, they are called Shagolo Shago. That means people who pick bottles and pick cans. They are called picking pigs. They say iron bender, things like that. Iron condemn. That means condemned iron material. However, they decided to give themselves Alumni boys. And why? At a time, they said the government or people accused them of removing aluminum banisters from bridges. And they decided that they were not responsible, because they will tell you, we are not the final custodian or final recipient of all these materials. They pick and they sell. So they decided to call themselves Alumni boys, as in, when we come, we are as noble as you are, even though you paint us with the brush strokes of criminality. So they decided to call themselves, so their boxing gym is called Alumni Boxing Gym. And when the two of them that represented Lagos State during the last National Sports Festival, what they had on their jacket was Alumni for life. So for them, they've been able to reinvent themselves and say, despite stigma, they've renegotiated the identity within the concept of stigma. And I think it goes back to what she had said. Over time, we may not be, like what he said, we may not be able to, the government may still call them deridely or derisively. We will call them scavengers. You dare not call them scavengers on the landfills. You dare not. But if you call them Kongi boys, people will say, what is Kongi? There used to be a soap, in a kind of local soap in Nigeria, very abrasive, very harsh, but it scrubs everything clean. And they will tell you, we are Kongi boys, in the sense that what had been thrown away begins a new life of newness with us. So for them, there's a reinvention. And that's why I'm saying the identity, what we call them, is based on when they come to us. But when you get to them, you find a new list of life that they've been able to brought to themselves.
So so they sell sachet water, bottled water, and soda, Coca-Cola and Fanta and all that. And the thing is, they sell those on the streets, that to in the traffic and all that. But where they keep their stuff is that place that I call Nkoro. They always tell you that it's a kind of like a hideout. So those are for one part of them. Some other parts of them sell fashion accessories like earrings, like bangles, waist beads, even anklets and all that. Some other parts of them are into pedicure and manicure, more like it's a kind of mobile kind of pedicure and manicure and all that. Some of them also sell food. Yeah, and some of them told me that it was part of the things that they have learned when they were in Italy that they are making use of right now. And also that being on the streets, their visibility while they were working as hustlers and sex workers in Italy, made them able to confront that the streets when they got back to Benin.
Okay. So sorry, we cannot ask more because it comes to the end of our session.
Any information?
I've said that.
A question. I want to know the gender dimensions of service. There are so many questions. I could have a little.
I didn't hear it. Aluminium, people we are gender. Said you want to ask.
My question. Can you give us the insight to gender dimension among informal speakers? We have a girl, we have
Yeah, the two other guys and the two men are yes.
This partner doesn't want to answer.
Thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Amina from the district. And I can relate to that. I remember in courtship, I told someone about my husband from police there. And when I mentioned my husband from police today, the person said, "You looking and thinking, how is your husband?" You know, so talking like we're having a conversation like okay, someone will be forgiven and he hit me right back. Do you know that I don't get a So that was a slap on my face, and I'm like, you people negotiate this, right? But he knows that I am on that one. So actually, I can actually relate to that systemic inequality when it comes to that. And now talking about registration, I've done your work, unfortunately, so impressive or your so I don't know if you consider the International Foundation for Migration, what they are doing to actually contribute. Also in the state at the moment, you have this key cool, anti-trafficking legislation and advocacy program. Then the board set up to bring what role do they play? To what extent do people have their intervention, bringing these people back? And how many of them, I don't know if you actually think about it, how many of you would like to be reintegrated? There are some who are actually being that according to law on you go to TikTok, Edo, those who are bad, and they are slamming it up going over to public spaces, displaying the act. And I'm not sure they have our integration. So I don't know if they want to, consider that. Thank you so very much.
The question. I said it doesn't want to fix it. Just want to
Okay. Thank you. I was just going to make a comment from the presentations made. I think essentially what I could pick from what most of them said, particularly with regard to the otherness of their subjects, is the fact that society respects you in your threat and denigrates you in your weakness. And there's a way that the otherness is constructed in such a way to exclude them. But it would take on the part of the weaker constituents of the society to actually tap their feet on the canvas of society and say we are here. I think that's essentially what I don't know. Thank you.
Answer your question. All right, yeah.
Well, he's been raising his
He's been raising his hand.
He even stood up at the